Well, good morning, everybody. It's about 9:30 here. Normally, I'll get on around 7 o'clock my time, but honestly, we got up a little bit later than that this morning because we were on a trip in Denver and didn't get in till late last night. And of course, Denver's time is a little bit. It's 2 hours difference than ours, and it kind of made me run late this morning. So I apologize for that. But I remember I wanted to start with the next God story. But I remember, I think we stopped at me going to play golf when the Lord had really, captured my life, and He wanted me to fulfill my contracts in golf. After that moment of giving my heart to the Lord and really going after what He told me to go after, I started on the tour, went back on the tour the next week to start playing golf. And I'll never forget it because it was down in South Carolina, not too far from here, to play in the next tour event. And I was ready to play golf because I'd just given my heart to the Lord. I was on my way to really doing what God had called me to do. And one of the things I knew He'd called me to do as a little boy was to, preach the gospel and to really help people. All my life, pretty much since I was a little boy, I was always interested in people, and somehow I was always attracting people to me, even as a young kid. I even remember as a young kid, I had this one man that I think he was probably back then in his 60s, and he would always come pick me up at my dad's work when I was about 7 or 6 years old, and he would take me to the diner to sit with me and drink a milkshake, and he would just ask me questions for a couple hours. We'd sit there and just talk, and I look back at how strange that was, but it's odd. When I was a young boy, I could identify with people no matter their age. And I look back now, and I really truly think it was the favor of the Lord and part of my gifting and that the Lord had given me. And it's always been that way. And that's one of the reasons I love playing golf, because you get to meet so many people as well. But getting back to the story, I headed down to South Carolina, and I'm ready, because I've given my heart back to the Lord, and He's forgiven me. I'm not going into that hole that He told me that I had dug, and I'll never forget it. I woke up that morning ready for the day, got my clubs, got my clothes on, ready to go. I went and hit balls. Everything was great. I was hitting the ball good. I thought, man, I could maybe win, And I got up on the tee. They called me up on the tee to hit my first shot with some guys, and I put the tee in the ground, put the ball on the tee, and I was about to put my club down behind the ball to hit the ball, and suddenly I felt something come out of my body. I could literally feel as though something left me. And I wouldn't try that at home, but I literally forgot how to play golf, and it was totally supernatural. I'd been playing since I was 10 years old, and for the first time, I forgot how to even swing, how to even take the club back, and I was so scared. I'll never forget that. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Because this time, for the first time in a long time, I'm really nervous. And I just said to myself, I've got to try to hit this ball somehow, And so I tried to swack at it. Because I didn't even know how to swing a golf swing. It's almost like I went into amnesia. And I was so scared. I can't even tell you how scared I was. Even thinking about that day still makes me sweat. And so I tried to just whack at it, just hit it as best I could. and I almost missed the ball, and what you call topping the ball. I topped the ball. I hit the very top of the ball with the bottom of the club, and when I did that, it drove the ball into the ground. Instead of going off, it just drove the ball into the ground, and the ball jumped up so high, bounced up so high, it almost hit me in the nose. And when I ducked like that, and the ball went forward, and it rolled out and on the end of the tee there, and I don't know, it probably went about maybe not even 10 yards and rolled in some heavy grass. And the whole crowd went, ooh, you know. And of course, everybody else hit their balls just perfectly down the fairway. And I can't tell you how humiliated I was. It was awful. And I got up on the side of the tee. The tee was, made straight out, and it was kind of on a knoll. And my ball was on a slant with a lot of grass, so I got up on the side of the hill and started whacking that ball, trying to get it out. And I hit it into the crowd and almost hit people. And that that hole is it was a par 4. It means, if you don't know golf, a par 4 means you have to get it in the hole in 4 shots. And so I put out on that first hole, and I made a 14. It took me 14 shots to get it in the hole. And the guys that I was playing with, they were waiting on me at the green just to get the ball to the hole, because I couldn't even get it at the hole. And I can't tell you how humiliating that was. Of course, back then, and of course we all have it still, and I know I still have it too, but I had a lot of pride. I mean, I was clothed in pride back then, and just thought, I was somebody. Wore all the fine clothes and with the shoes, and tried to make myself somebody that I'm really not. And I'm humiliated, and I get up there and I put out for 14, and the other guys are not saying a word to me. Of course, they're looking at me a little bit odd. And we go to the next hole, and it just continues. I can't remember, and literally try to remember how to play. Even trying to remember how to play golf was frustrating, because I literally didn't know the principles on how to swing a golf club anymore. And by the 6th hole, I had a following because I was playing so bad. And so I get past the 6th hole, and I am just miserable. And I finally get to the 9th hole, and I go to putt out, and I am so not just humiliated, but I am just mad. I mean, this is the first time in a long time since I was a little boy just playing this bad. And I thought, I'm leaving, I felt like a little child. I'm getting out of here. And I was just going to walk off the golf course, walk off the tournament, and withdraw. And as soon as I turned to walk off, I hear the Lord literally speak to me in my ear. I hear a literal audible voice. It wasn't just a voice inside. I hear a literal audible voice, and it says, "Where are you going, boy?" And I turned around to look to see who said that, and then I realized it was God that was speaking to me. And so I mumbled under my breath. I said, "I can't take this anymore." And he said to me, as soon as I said, "I can't take this," he said to me, "I thought you was going to do everything I told you as long as I let you see me." I said, "I will." And I was frustrated. I said, "I will." And he said, "Well, turn around and keep playing." And I was like, "Oh, no." So I turned around like a little child that was just scolded, And I went to the 10th tee and had to keep playing, And so I first number 10, I get up and I whack that ball, and it goes into the crowd, again, it was just one thing after another, left, right, left, right. It was like marching orders looking down. If you looked at me going down the fairway, I was on the right side of the fairway, and then I was on the left side of the fairway. I was in the water, and by the 15th tee, I teed up my last ball. In other words, I'd lost all of my balls except one. That was something, man. When I teed it up, and I was actually relieved because I'd lost all the balls, and I knew that I would lose this one, And so I teed up the last one, and honestly, even though, I was playing horrible and I was humiliated, I was actually starting to get happy that I was about to lose my last ball so I could get disqualified from the tournament and go home. I was just ready to get out of there. And I was thinking, man, I've done what the Lord told me to do, and I'm going to lose this ball, and then I'll get disqualified and I can go home, And so I hit that ball, and it goes into the woods, and the spotters are looking for it, but we can't find it, or they can't find it. But by rule, I have to go and look for it as well. And so I walked straight to the ball. You would not believe it. I walked straight to the ball, and the spotters just couldn't believe I found the ball. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I just found this ball. I cannot believe this. So I hit it again, and it goes out and goes across the fairway, goes in the woods, and I walk straight to it again. And I start realizing he is not going to let me lose this ball. And I was really frustrated by then. I thought, oh my gosh, this is totally supernatural. He is on me really bad. I don't know if you've ever had that problem, but where you're trying to evade what God tells you to do, but he just keeps bringing it right in your face. That's kind of the way it was with me that day. He just kept putting it in front of my face, saying, you're going to finish this. Even though it was humiliating and it was hurting, I had to finish it. And of course, that taught me a lesson for today, even in my own life. It doesn't matter how much it hurts. It doesn't matter how much trials you go through. If the Lord tells you to do it, you have got to do what God tells you to do. It doesn't matter what the pain you go through. Of course, a lot of these days, we most of the time just walk away from what God tells us to do when the heat gets on. Or we say it must not been the Lord, or I need signs and wonders to tell me if it's the Lord or not, because you're really in pain. You really don't want to go through the pain of doing what the Lord tells you to do. But if you do it, there's a reward at the end. The more pain during your trial or during that word of God that you're walking through, the greater the promise and the greater the reward you have at the end. And I'll tell you that here in just a minute, because I learned that. I started learning that the greater the trials, the greater the reward, And sometimes he'll tell you things that are, to your mind can be really hard, and you're thinking, there's no way I can do this. But you can do it. If the Lord tells you to do something, that means he already knows that he put the strength in you to do it. You just have to believe it, because it's his word. He puts his trust in us, and he puts his own trust in himself of the power that he gave you within. And so when he tells you something to do, it's not like you have to wait on something, to happen. If he's telling you something to do, he knows he's giving you the power to do it. You just have to remember that. I have the power to do this. Of course, then I didn't think playing golf, I'm thinking, man, I cannot do this. But man, I had to do it. And I looked awful. Can you imagine me hitting that ball left and right and not being able to lose it, looking like a fool, And I finally finished out and putted out on the last hole with that same ball. But, which tells me today, a lot of us are probably, doing things that God told you to do, and you look like a fool to everybody, and you're going through pain, and everybody's telling you the Job story. You need to just stop, or I don't think this is the Lord. But man, if when you finish, you feel like you've actually accomplished something, because you and the Lord walked through some pain together, and you made it. Of course, when I putted out, I was relieved. I was thinking, man, I can go home. And but at the same time, there were still people following, and I was still just humiliated. And I thought, well, I putted out. I'm going to walk off the golf course. I'm not going to turn my scorecard in. But the Lord said, turn your scorecard in. And I thought, oh my gosh. Because I had to be accountable, to my play. And I wasn't really wanting to be accountable for my play at that time. And that was something else I learned. You've got to be accountable for everything you do here in life. And so I walked back in there. I walked into the scorekeepers, and I knew the guy that was keeping the scores. And he said, hey, Brad, how'd you play? And I looked down and I said, well, not too good, and I handed him the scorecard after we tallied everything. And he looked at it, and he looked up at me, and he said a few coarse words. He said, you mean to tell me you want me to put this on the scoreboard? Because you have to put your score, on this huge scoreboard that they had them around the golf course. And I looked at him and I shook my head and I said, yes, sir, you need to put it on the scoreboard. And he kind of chuckled. He went, okay, I'll put it on the scoreboard. And I ran out of there, man. Of course, you can imagine the other players that were with me were just kind of looking at me like, you do not belong here. I can't believe that you're playing like this, Brad. This is ridiculous, You don't need to be here. You're not qualified to be here. And, of course, I had to learn that, too, going through this thing. Doesn't matter how much they reject you, and doesn't matter how foolish you look, you have got to finish what God tells you to finish, no matter what people say, and no matter how the looks that you get, you have got to finish. And because they didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't tell them. That was another thing. I could not tell anybody what was going on. And I'll tell you that one, because that happened the next day. The Lord wouldn't let me tell them. And so I left that score, the building where you turn in your scorecard. And I ran to my car, and I threw my golf bag in the back and cranked up the car, and man, I was flying down that road. I couldn't wait to get to my hotel, I was going to pack up, and I was leaving town, man. And I'm screaming as I'm driving the car. I am screaming, oh, God, help me. Why are you doing this to me? I kept screaming, why are you doing this to me? And there was no voice. The only voice that I'd heard that day was, turn around, keep playing. Where are you going, boy? Turn in your scorecard, I look back now, and I've had other encounters with the Lord. The Lord has no pity. Absolutely no pity, because he's all truth. So, if pity can actually cause a great stumbling block in a person's path, especially when they're going down the right path, and you're walking with them, or you're watching them, or you're helping them. Giving them pity doesn't help. Because when you pity them, it slows the whole process down, and it may even cause them to not even go down that path that the Lord's called them to. I'm telling you, pity is one of the greatest stumbling blocks on the path of life and on the path of what God's called people to do. And sometimes people that I help and people that God has put us over, sometimes I'll see them go through major trials and major pain, but know this type of trial is good for them and it's helping them. But at the same time, I'm still human. You want to call them up and just have pity on them and feel sorry for them and try to, that is the last thing that they need. I have found out it only slows the whole process down. And so you can still love them without having to pity them. I had that happen even this past weekend. Man, I felt my heart was hurting so much for some of these folks that we were ministering to, but man, the Lord just kept giving me words that would cause them to keep going instead of words from my own self, saying, oh, I'm sorry that you went through this. This is so bad, blah, blah, blah. The Lord would just give me prophetic stuff for them, but it had no pity on them, on it. It was complete truth. But yet when I would speak it without the pity, man, it would cause them to listen. And they would get, instead of getting offended, they would get energized and start thinking, man, I've got to keep pushing on. I don't care if I'm getting beat up or not. I have got to keep finishing this, And that's the way the Lord was with me during this thing. But man, I wanted some pity, I wanted to lick my wounds, But he wouldn't let me. Even though I was complaining, he would not let me. You just keep going, boy. And and so I get to the hotel, and man, I slam my bag down, and I hit the floor, and I'm screaming. I'm talking screaming. I'm saying, Lord, please help me. Why are you doing this thing? And I was beating the carpet. And back then I had glasses, but since then I've had that LASIK surgery. And my glasses were filling up with tears. Man, my face was on the floor, just beating it. And I can't even tell you I was thinking of the thoughts of what people were thinking, what I looked like. I don't know if you've ever rehashed some of your humiliating times, but I was rehashing it, and the more I rehashed it, the worse it got. And then I'd scream out to the Lord, why are you doing this? And then I looked up. When I looked up, there were feet, standing there. And it scared me to death. I mean, I about pooped in my pants. And but I thought, my God, I'm losing it. I've forgotten how to play golf. There must be something going on with my mind. I've heard a voice. I know I kept going. I know it was God, but what if it wasn't? And now I'm seeing feet, and I throw my face down in my hands, and I'm still laying on the floor, and I'm saying, help, God, help me, Jesus. I said, I'm hallucinating, please. I was saying I'm having a nervous breakdown, or you name it. And I look up again just to see if my mind's, getting right. And there were feet still there. Now, it wasn't that I was having a vision. I mean, I was literally seeing some feet there. And it scared me, and I thought, so I'm laying there and I'm seeing the feet, looking up like this, seeing the feet. And I thought, well, I'm going to take my arms and hit it just to prove to my mind that it's not real so I can get out of this. And man, I raised up and I went like that because I knew my arms and my wrist, when I'd hit it, would go through the vision. I just knew it was a imagination or a nervous breakdown or something. And when I did my arms like that to make them go through the vision, it hit ankles. and when it hit, oh man, I can't even tell you. It gives me cold chills just to think about it. When it hit, my brain just did a switch. I mean, instantly just switched to this is reality. Which I realized, later on in life that Jesus is true reality. Our life and the way that we think is total illusions. There's a lot of our life we live in the flesh instead of in the spirit. But I didn't realize through all the stripping, and the stripping that I went through that day was actually tearing away a lot of the old flesh and the pride from my eyes so that I could see again. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that process of God at that time. I was so new at this. Of course, I'm thinking, my God, Jesus, is here, and I looked up, and when I looked up, he was standing there. And he had this half-cocked smile on his face. And I couldn't even have words to my mouth. And I looked back down the feet, and and there's the holes, and I realized, oh my God, this is the man. This is him. And I put my head down and I said, I'm so sorry, Lord. I'm so sorry. Because I started realizing I had been questioning him and thinking that he's driving me crazy and thinking that this is the wrong way. But when I saw him, my mind knew instantly, supernaturally, I was in the right path and I was on the right way, but which convicted my heart, because I was screaming at the Lord, mad at the Lord. Couldn't believe that he was doing this to me. And then when I saw him, then I saw the path as total righteousness. It was his path that I was following, which was causing my path and all the things that I had to have to fall off. And that's the thing I've learned, that if you follow God's path, or if you follow his voice and you follow his words and obey them, no matter how painful it is, you're not only reaching your destiny, but following his orders and obeying his word. It tears away all the veils that keep you from really seeing reality and really seeing the Lord. And man, I'm going to tell you, when I was putting my head down and I said, I'm sorry, Lord, he put his hand on my head. And this lightning of love, and I'm still trying to find it. I'm still studying it after all these years. This happened in the 90s, and I'm still trying to grab a hold of it. I'm like Paul. I'm still trying to apprehend that apprehended me, and but I can tell you, this lightning of love shot through me. He didn't say a word, but it hit me, and it's like I felt something go inside my body, and it was almost like I was getting shocked, but it wasn't. I was feeling shocked. I could feel this love shocking my spirit, like it was awakening me within inside. And instantly, when the love went in, my mind supernaturally forgot all the pain that day. I couldn't even go back to the past, which is something the Lord has taught me over the years, that there is a love of God that is so deep that will cause you literally not to even be able to go back to the past, be able to remember all of your pain, all of the abuse, or anything you've gone through. There is a true love of God that totally, literally can erase it. It's almost like you go amnesia on all of your pain, and then the rest, all you can see is nothing but the Lord. And he said later on, he did tell me that there would be a generation that would be possessed by love, and there would literally be a literal generation that the old things literally will pass away physically and mentally in their mind, and they will literally walk out a brand new life. There will be all nothing but hearing the voice of God. Of course, Jesus does warn us not to, he warns us to remember Lot's wife. Don't look back, And there's so much in that, but we won't go into that. And we're talking about, the God stories, but when I totally forgot, I sat there and it went through me, and I forgot what happened. And then my consciousness went into thinking of nothing but Jesus. And my ears, like they opened to, it's almost like they had their own life. They were turned to the Lord. They were not turned to myself. It turned everything. It turned my senses. It turned my eyes. Even my smell. I could smell him. And my ears, everything. Everything had to tune in to the Lord. And which that's the way the Lord is, you know. If he walks into a room, everything has to bow. Everything knows that it's God. Everything knows that that's the Creator. When the Lord shows up, it says every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that he is Lord. But what happens is if you're against God, if you're a warrior against the Lord, but he walks in, your bones, because he made them, even though you're an enemy, but your bones and everything, your molecular structure is still made by the Creator. So if he walks in, your bones literally recognize him. Your molecules and everything recognize the Creator. And even though you may not want to bend, your bones will start to bend and bow on its own. It doesn't matter how bad your mind is. Your tongue will have to confess. It will move on its own because it was created by God. It will have to say he is Lord because he is the master of all things. He's not some fluffy, graceful, like a lot of people say, we've abused some grace, but he is a king. And everything in you has to bow, and your tongue will have to move to confess him. It doesn't matter if your mind is not there or not. Your tongue's going to confess him. Your mouth's going to move and say he's Lord. And so I looked up and I said, Lord, and that smile on his face, man, that was just unreal. It's like he looked at me as though he was proud of me. It made me tear up. I just sat there and wept because when he looks at you in that type of way, as though he's proud of you, oh, I can't even tell you. I don't know if you've ever had someone really look at you with real thought and real care and say that they're proud of you. It makes you feel like you're strong. It makes you feel great, But multiply that kind of power coming from a human, just your friend or whatever, coming from God. Because when he says that, my Lord, and he was just saying it with his eyes. And his eyes say thousands of words. That's one of the things that the Lord can't stand. The Bible says that he hates a haughty look because looks have power and looks have literal words that come out of it. And I know that we all know this, but I'm sure you've had people look at you, badly. You can hear something. You can feel something. You feel a power in it. It's a haughty look. But can you imagine the Lord looking at you as though he's proud and the things you hear? I can't even explain all of the things that I heard and the revelations that went through my mind just by looking in his eyes. They'll come to me every now and then when it's time, just from the look that he gave me. And I've studied more on his eyes and the way he looks for a long time because I still want to. I know that's part of that love that shot through me. And I had this strength to be able to know I could be with the Lord. And he said, stand up. He said, arise, sit down, and grab a pen and paper and write down every word that proceeds out of my mouth. And so I had this strength to be able to stand up with my friend, my king. And he walked over and sat down, and I grabbed the pen. At that time, I didn't have a pad, so I grabbed the hotel. Y'all know those little hotel pads, they leave on a table there in your hotel room. I was grabbing those things. I don't even have one here, but it was just a little old notepad. It wasn't no bigger than this, And so I just started writing, and the strangest thing about this is I look back at those times, because this happened over a course of a year and a half, almost 2 years, off and on, when he would come. And I look back, and while he would talk to me, he would start telling me what he has called me to do. He started telling me the things that he wanted me to do in the future. He started telling me some future things that were going to happen on earth and how to be prepared for them. And then they would go through seasons of him telling me more revelations of his Father and who he really is, and I'd have to write them down. And I look back after, I would say, 8 months, I started realizing something. He never told me what he was doing to me. He never brought up one thing that I had done wrong. He would tell me his purpose in my life and the things that he had destined for my life. And the more I would listen, I started realizing I'd get washed. The more I would listen to what he wanted to do, the things that he was doing, the things that he had called me to do, the more I listened to him, the more I was completely washed over and over of things in my life, with me not even having to realize it. That's the key, man. It's by his word our mind is renewed. It's not by our words. Oh man, I need to check this, I need to do that. Man, if you just hear his word, even today, if you just sat for a moment and said, "What do you want to do?" and you hear, I want you to go outside. And you just go outside. By you just hearing the word and obeying it, I want you to go outside. And when it comes from God, it's sharper than any two-edged sword. I'm telling you, it is so powerful if you just heard those 3 words from God. Not counting the word of God, the Bible. But when you hear those words and then you do them, you're washed of years of something that had been hounding you. I'm telling you, it is that strong, it is that powerful. That's why the enemy is constantly getting us to do other things other than just listen to the Lord and just walk in his ways. If we walk in his ways, then everything is renewed. Your whole life starts getting renewed. But man, the enemy tries to make us do it in a different way and formulas. But man, can you imagine just following him and listening to him? And that's what he would do. The more he would talk to me, the more I would listen, the more I would obey his voice. I was getting washed and renewed and restored. There was total reconciliation going on between me and the Lord by him telling me his will for my life. And it was just the most wonderful thing. I never met anybody that would speak to me without any hooks. And I don't know, a lot of times, I used to give prophetic words and stuff like that, but my insides, my real self, would be given a prophetic word, seeing if it's going to change them. I would give prophetic words to change people. And honestly, now I look back and that was not right. I would be changing them and using God's gift to change them, in my way instead of the Lord's way. And but he was using his prophetic gift as, man, this is what I've called you to do. He would be excited, but yet he was really meaning it. He wasn't doing it to try to get me to change. His words and his commandments were changing me because they had no hooks on them. All it was total love. And when it would hit you, man, it would change your life. You could feel it wash over you and cause you to, man, I'm going for this thing, And so we sat there probably, I think he spent maybe an hour or a little bit over an hour with me, talking to me. I had that whole little notepad. I'd have to flip it over to the other little page, and I'd write it down. And we sat there for a good while, him talking to me. And after he finished, he said, "Well, I will see you later." And man, when he just turned around and just disappeared, like he was walking somewhere, he disappeared. And I just sat there and cried. I can't even tell you the feeling that I had. I was just sitting there crying and thanking God for being in my room. I could not believe our King was in our room, in my hotel room. And I was thanking him, for everything. And man, the next day I woke up and I can't even tell you, I was on cloud nine, literally cloud nine. But, and I started to go to the golf course, and man, I started hitting balls again. I had to get there early because I shot 110. I wasn't even playing with anybody. I had to go tee off first, and they had just send a marker with me, a guy just to come and keep my score. Nobody played as bad as I did. It was awful. But I was so happy on the range and the tour, and of course I was there real early. There was nobody on the range, and then by the time I was about to, pick up my bag and going to the tee to go hit, I passed one of the players, and he stopped me and he goes, "You okay?" Because he'd heard how bad I played. A lot of the players thought I'd either was losing my mind or on drugs or having a nervous breakdown. And of course, I still have pride. I'm still getting dealt with because this goes on for almost 2 years. And I was just about to tell him because I was just excited, And I said, I was about to tell him, "Hey, I'm giving my heart to the Lord. I'm coming back to the Lord. And he's just dealing with me." I was just about to say that. And just about when I was about to open my mouth, the Lord's voice came to me, literally, while I was just about to say it. And he said, "Don't blame this on me." And I went, "Oh my." So I had to I said, "Man, I know I'm playing bad. It's been rough. I'm okay. I'm just playing bad." So even then, man, it started. I mean, it started. I could not blame this thing on the Lord. So we'll stop right there. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll start on not being able to tell anybody. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm sorry we were late today, but man, we were in meetings in Denver, and their time is a little bit different than ours, and we got in really late last night, and I totally forgot to get up at 7 o'clock. I was just pooped. So you'll have to have grace on me. But I will remember next time. But anyway, we love you guys. I hope this helped. I'll try to remember where we stopped at, and then we'll go next Tuesday with God Stories number 3. So I hope you learned something. I hope it helped you. Keep going after the Lord. Do what he tells you. Man, I'm telling you, it will cleanse your life. Just obeying him, listening to him, and obeying his voice. He's always making us move forward. He's not making you go backwards. Listen, I'm telling you, God is forward motion. He is a river that flows out. He is a forward motion God. And you just keep moving forward like I did, playing that golf. I had to keep moving forward. I had to keep beating that ball around, even though I was manifesting and I was doing all kinds of stuff. I had to keep moving forward, whether I was manifesting or not. There's no telling how many strongholds I was manifesting that day, but he just kept me moving forward. And you may be manifesting strongholds, you may be manifesting all types of stuff. It's only because God is moving you forward. And if you keep moving forward, you will be cleansed. You believe more in God instead of your old condemnation self. Believe more in his word and what he's told you to do than someone telling you, hey, you need to fix this and you need to do that. Man, you listen, we have got to start listening to the Lord. Now, if the Lord does speak to through somebody saying, hey, this is some things you need to deal with, and you feel the love and the presence of God on it, you know it's Jesus, then do it, because that's still forward motion. But we have got to keep moving. We have got to keep moving forward. There's too many of us that are still sitting by the sidelines waiting on the Lord to tell us something when he's already told us, and we just know it's going to be painful. We don't want to go through pain. But man, we have got to have a generation that's, man, we love the suffering of God much as we do the glory of God. And not many people like the fellowship of his suffering. But man, the fellowship of his suffering is where the secrets are. And I've met some folks. I've met some of these young people, man, they're going after it. Doesn't matter how painful it is. So enjoy life. Enjoy the walk with God. It's better than you think. All right. We love you. And I'll see you later. I'll see you next Tuesday. All right. Grace. Bye-bye.